The Pet's Life with Gym Dog, Ireland's first pet resort by Des the Vet. Managed by vets, loved by pets. Daycare, vet care, premium pet food and grooming. Visit at petslife.ie.
There we go. And a very good morning to you. And it's time to welcome Des Groom with us as well. How you doing, Des?
Hi, John. I'm great today, thanks.
Good. Okay, so let's get straight into it because there's a few things we want to have a general chit-chat about. I'm going to touch on Crufts first instead of last.
Yeah. Because
I'm reading the article and I know you sent me on a couple of links for it as well during the week. And it's a very interesting read. But the Crufts is kind of, it aims towards everything and everybody and all different types of breeds are in with the chance of winning. But there's a bit of controversy going on at the moment, isn't there?
There's a controversy there because the overall winner was an Italian Whippet, and it's a lovely example of the Whippet breed, a beautiful dog, and I would personally be very happy to see a winner coming from a breed like a Whippet, because they're a lovely, practical, utility breed. They're very healthy. They make ideal pets because they're relatively low maintenance. So kudos for picking a Whippet as the overall winner. Kudos to Crufts. However, winning a dog show or losing a dog show, it's always a matter of opinion, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the opinion this year was that the Jack Russell, believe it or not, should have been picked as the overall winner.
And it was a beautiful Jack Russell, a wire-haired Jack Russell.
So obviously there is a Jack Russell category and there are lots of Jack Russells there, and the overall champion Jack Russell went forward for judging into the best in show category and was the favourite of everybody, and he was a beautiful little model, a beautiful example of a Jack Russell. And one would think that British judges would have chosen a Jack Russell, but they didn't. They went for the Whippet, and we don't know why. Yeah,
and I think that's the other thing when you look at it. I mean, there seems to be a lot of international entrants because the owner there, Giovanni Ligure, who owns Misuccia, Miuccia, which is the Whippet.
Yeah.
So obviously it's an open competition, so anybody can enter from anywhere around the world.
It's an open competition, and it's global, it's international, and they want to try and style themselves as the ultimate dog show, maybe as the world dog show. So they have to have an international element to it, and when they're judging, they can't be seen to be going for a British dog. Probably too often, more often than not.
Yeah.
But and all of us would love to see a Jack Russell win because there's the commonest breed out there. Lovely little wire-haired, tan and white Jack Russell. Does it say what his name was?
I'm just scanning down the Jack Russell. No, it doesn't. It just says the Jack Russell, the wire-haired terrier.
Other news from Crufts there, which is very interesting. They have a vulnerable breeds category.
Okay.
Yeah. And you'd be surprised now, the dogs that are on the vulnerable breeds. A vulnerable breed is a dog where there's less than 300 puppies of that particular breed registered by the Kennel Club per year. Right? And the sad thing from an Irish context here, I'm looking down through the list. The ones that are categorised as vulnerable breeds, the Irish red and white setter is on the list. The Irish terrier is on the list. The Irish wolfhound and the Kerry blue.
Right.
They're all on the vulnerable list. So Irish breeders, Irish folks out there, do support your own native breeds, because those ones I've just mentioned, the wolfhound, Irish terrier, Irish red and white setter, Kerry blue, they make lovely pets. They're relatively healthy, relatively low maintenance. They wouldn't be the worst pet in the world to have in terms of your vet bills and the hassle you'd have. So you'd love to see more Irish people supporting Irish breeds.
Okay. And I see the runner-up when it comes to that particular overall winner was Tibetian Mastiff. The Mastiffs, I see a lot of them around. My neighbour has them.
Yeah, there are different strains of Mastiffs, different types.
Yeah.
The Tibetan Mastiff, that'd be a fairly rare one now. You wouldn't see too many of them in Ireland.
Yeah.
There's a French Mastiff, which is another big dog. The Bull Mastiff, a big dog. And there are various types of Mastiffs.
I'd say they'd be hard to maintain, though.
They're hard to maintain. So the thing about a Mastiff is they're really too big. Okay, they get skin issues, they have tummy issues, they have bone and joint issues.
Right.
And their longevity, unfortunately their lifespan wouldn't be great.
Be only about 10 or 11 years old.
Oh, less now, John. You'd be down around 7 to 9, I'd say.
Would you?
Yeah.
Why? Is that because of the way?
Because of their pure size.
Yeah.
And because of the size, I reckon it's a genetic thing. They have cardiac issues. And heart problems, and part of the reason for that is that their bodies are probably too big compared to what their heart is actually designed to
Getcha.
to do. Yeah.
Okay, right, fair enough. So when it comes to the overall breeds, and I suppose the whole thing about this particular thing when it comes to Crufts itself is that it's a global thing now. It's not like the kind of the BBC Two and they're jumping over a couple of fences in the afternoon. Like,
that's not local. Now there's an Irish version. I've been to it a few times before. I think it's on, from memory, it's on Paddy's Day. It used to be held in the RDS years ago, and I think it's now held out in the big conference centre in Malahide. That's worth a visit. The Irish National Dog Show, St Patrick's Day.
Okay.
And a lot of the Irish breeders who've been to Crufts, they'll be back now this week, and they'll be showing their dogs again Paddy's Day in the Irish version of it. And it's worth going up to have a look.
Yeah.
Maybe just Google exactly where. I'm really certain it's the conference centre in Malahide, and it's St Patrick's Day again this year. Okay. Yeah.
If anybody knows, they can give us an old WhatsApp or a text on that as well. And likewise, we love your questions start coming in. Please 088 397 97 97. If you want to get in touch with us, you know the number by now. Now, I want to talk about the bee, because beekeepers have been warned that the native Irish bees are at grave risk of extinction.
Yeah, which is a pity, because when we lose, it's a big statement to make, and it's a pity because if we lose a native insect like the honeybee, which is integral to the ecosystem in Irish nature, then the ecosystem is altered. And there's a knock-on effect. All sorts of things in terms of pollination of various native plants are all affected. So the Irish native honeybee is a docile, calm type of bee that has evolved to survive in a colder climate and a wetter climate. And because they've evolved in Ireland over hundreds of years, then they would also selectively favour pollination of plants that are native to us.
That makes sense.
Yes. So if we lose our native honeybee, then the pollination, the crossover of the correct plants and the correct indigenous native wild plants and in the flora of our everyday countryside, that gets altered as well.
Okay.
The reason we're losing the purity of our native honeybee is apparently because of importation of more aggressive bees from abroad.
Yes.
Now, these bees from abroad wouldn't survive probably very long naturally in the native Irish climate, but they would have been brought in for their honey producing qualities.
Okay, so these are the hybrid bees.
Yeah, hybrid. So there would have been strains of bees brought in by commercial honey producers, and then they go feral, they go native, and they breed with the native honeybees. And they reckon now up to 30% of the Irish bee population is hybrid. And these hybrids don't survive as well in the Irish climate. So the more hybrids we have, then paradoxically, the more endangered honeybees become, because they don't survive as well in our climate.
Okay, that makes sense too. But the interesting stat is that hybrid bees in Ireland have surged from under 5% in 2018 to more than 12% today, with some regions reporting exceeding 30%. That's alarming numbers.
That's not good, because their pollination patterns will differ from the native bee.
Yeah.
And they're because they're more aggressive, they're out-competing the native honeybee. And they're killing off the native honeybee. They're taking over their hives. And that's why their numbers are growing.
Okay, so they're having a meeting this weekend, I do believe. Is it this weekend?
In Athlone.
In Athlone, Athlone Springs Hotel. And I suppose one of the things they're going to be discussing is the possibility of banning the imports of non-native bees. A proposed bill to protect the native bees that would ban imports of non-native bees is currently in the Oireachtas as well.
Yeah, it just goes to show you the range of things that our politicians look at in the Dáil. And that's a really useful, practical, simple type of legislation where they'll take the advice of ecologists and beekeepers and other environmentalists, and they'll look at what's in the best interests of the Irish ecosystem. And they're going to put together, there's a bill going through the Oireachtas. Yeah. And with the case of bills like this, like the Animal Welfare Bill, it'll be amended or tweaked on the basis of advice from the experts to best suit what will best suit the Irish ecosystem.
And the interesting thing, I just see it as another kind of a caveat to all that, is that it seems that the banning of imports of bees has been made difficult as bees are now considered livestock. right?
Right.
And because they're considered livestock, it means they have the freedom of movement within the EU.
Yeah.
And that's where the problem is. That's the reason why the imports are coming in.
This is why legislation is required to curb the importation.
And close that loophole.
And hopefully they will, because then the Irish native honeybee gets a chance to grow in population again, grow in its numbers, thereby protecting the stability of our ecosystem, and also protecting the purity or the distinctiveness and the individuality of Irish honey.
Okay, and hopefully that we'll get a good bit of feedback about how that event to which this has taken place at the Elm Springs.
I have a pal in Athy, a vet in Athy, whose hobby is beekeeping.
Okay.
A very interesting hobby for somebody. If you had a little bit of land, anybody listening who wants to, it would be a nice hobby to get into. And you could keep...
And because they're considered so docile, it's not like they're aggressive bees. The Irish native bees are really good.
Do a course or whatever. The Irish National Honeybee Keepers Association, they run these courses, and you'd learn. It'd be relatively inexpensive and easy to get in on it at ground level and produce your own honey and maybe sell a bit of it in the local market, that sort of thing. I'd encourage anyone to consider doing that as a nice hobby.
Okay. Brian was on. He said some of the new hybrid dogs and animals that you see in some of the shows are not practical animals to actually own and have at home.
Yeah, he's right about that. The ones that spring to mind, the French bulldog and pug, and these dogs with the very squashed faces that have breeding and breathing difficulties and heart problems and so on. Not very practical to have. And what happens is over time, those dogs that aren't very practical, they become less popular.
Yeah.
And then their numbers drop.
Yeah.
So the market kind of self-regulates.
And that seems to be the case with the Crufts thing, because you didn't see an awful lot of the likes of the pugs or the squash-faced animals that you've seen over the last decade or so.
That's right.
It seems to have slowed down.
So they were popular there for a while because of Instagram and the Kardashians and all this kind of stuff, French bulldogs and pugs, and then they started winning at the shows. There was an outcry because people said, hang on a minute, you shouldn't be picking these and giving them the overall prizes. The numbers of them have dropped again.
Because it was trendy to do so.
Because it was trendy to do so. There you see an interesting thing. We were talking about the vulnerable breed list. Sometimes these dogs find their way onto the vulnerable breed list because they have health issues or difficulties. I'll give you an example now. The Cavalier King Charles. Would you believe that's now, the numbers have dropped. When I was a younger vet...
they were everywhere,
They were everywhere, John. If you remember 10, 15, it wouldn't be 20 years ago, but up to about 10 years ago, Cavaliers were everywhere. And now they're on the vulnerable breed list. And the reason why, unfortunately, is they became victims of their own success. Inbreeding became a problem in the population of them, lack of genetic diversity. Then they began to develop terrible heart problems and eye problems. And people stopped breeding them again and their numbers have dropped off. So breeders that have only a small number of these ones, right, they have to selectively now pick the healthy ones and try and rebuild the breed.
And is there other breeds that are down the bottom of that list that we would like to see coming back up to the middle part of the table and up towards the top end that maybe they could end up just fading away?
Yeah, ones that would need to come up, they're maybe not cute and they're not Instagrammable, but they make lovely pets. I'll give an example. The English setter is on the list. The bearded collie is on the list. The Irish Terrier is on the list, right? The Kerry Blue is on the list.
Didn't I think the Kerry Blue, because I thought that was a trendy dog.
Would think so. The Irish Water Spaniel.
Right.
There's another one. Most of our native breeds, folks, are on the list, which is terrible, because those names I've just read out there, they wouldn't be dogs that are top of the list in vet hospitals. In other words, they're relatively healthy, good, low maintenance, nice dogs to breed.
Okay.
So breeders out there with them, do try and keep your numbers up. And folks, if you're looking to get a puppy, look at some of the more unusual breeds and consider that you can look beyond cockapoos and cavapoos. And you can look at these more unusual, more old-fashioned breeds, and they still make lovely pet dogs.
Okay, so a couple of questions, and it's to do with Cocker Spaniels, various different types of ones.
Good.
Marcy was on. She says that she has a 4-year-old golden cocker female, absolutely class dog. We had one before a few years ago when I was a child, and I find it more highly strung. We never really got on with the dog, but my dog is an absolute gem to work with. Loves going for a walk, eats diet. Absolutely terrific. Highly recommend a Golden Cocker Spaniel.
Yeah, that's nice to hear that she is a nice, calm, and if she has a lovely temperament like that, this particular cocker, she'd be an ideal one to breed from. So one of the breed characteristics that's a little bit of a fault with them is they can be very nervous, and that makes them snappy.
Okay.
So it's lovely. It would be lovely if breeders could select for calmness in the Cocker Spaniels going forward.
So, I mean, the follow-on question from the second person doesn't sign off, just simply says, is a Cocker Spaniel a good pet to own?
Yeah, it just depends, you see.
But there's different types. Would you recommend anyone, would a Springer Spaniel be better than a Golden Cocker?
Yes, a Springer Spaniel is a little bit bigger. A Cocker Spaniel is a little bit smaller. And the thing about them is, in terms of their nervous behaviours and their anxiety, they need to be really well socialised as puppies. So they're tremendously popular, and they're lovely dogs and they're lovely pets. And if you're thinking of getting one, go and look around the breeder, and you want to see them with both parents, and you want to see them in an outdoor, natural, social environment.
And that's the thing.
Running around a yard.
Yes.
Now, for instance, I know a lady breeder there in Rathangan who has German Shepherds and Jack Russells, which are an unusual mix, but they get on very well together. They mix very well. And it's an ideal place to buy a puppy from, because people can turn up there, and this is a perfect environment where if I was looking to buy a well-socialised, ideal family pet, right? You drive into the yard, there are youngsters running around helping with the dogs, right? Young teenagers, and it's a family environment. And there are ponies, Jack Russells and German Shepherds all running around on a few acres together. So it's a highly social environment. And that's the type of place where you want to go, and you want to be looking around. And when you're walking through the back garden of someone that like that who's a breeder, you want to see them all running around and mixing and mingling. Okay.
Pauline O'Brien was on, and she's listening to us in Maynooth. She says she was over in her sister's house last weekend. They had a fabulous new Whippet puppy. And boy, oh boy, did the kids think she is fantastic. Very, very affectionate.
Yeah, affectionate, and obviously a well-socialised little puppy. Again, if you go far enough back, of course, they're a working breed. So they're highly intelligent. They're highly responsive to people. They want to be given a job to do. They want to learn. So they're very easy to it's very easy to teach them tricks. Very easy to make them obedient, because they want to be involved. They want to learn. They want to be stimulated. They have that working breed instinct, so they can make a perfect pet. And the more time and energy you invest in a puppy like that, the more rewarding that investment and training and time will be.
Okay. Would Whippets be the type of dogs that you could have two at a time, or is it more that are they social or what?
Yeah, you could have two at a time.
You could. There'd be no problem with taking two on or whatever else.
No problem.
Okay.
Greyhounds are being endorsed now as well by Crufts too. There's a greyhound class.
Yeah.
And there's two types of greyhound. You have the ones that are bred just for show, which are the minority, but far more common are the greyhounds that have come from the racing environment.
They're a great dog to rescue as well, aren't they?
Great dog to rescue. We were talking to Dave McGrath and I last week about this. The greyhound racing is a victim of its own, probably a victim of its own carelessness in ways, in that it's been banned in some countries. And I don't believe in the ban, because they're a natural breed and they need to race. They love to race. But the whole welfare issues within the bottom end of the racing industry needs to be just sorted out, so that we don't fall into the same trap of having it banned here. Okay, right, fair enough. Another question. We have a small JRT and he keeps scooting his bum on the ground. He is wormed, but could there be another reason, says Clodagh and Lucan. What's JRT? Yeah, Jack Russell Terrier. Oh, Jack. Clodagh, that's an anal gland problem. Okay. That's an anal gland problem. Please bring him to your vet today. Today, okay. Yes. There you go, Clodagh. You've got the information. Now do what Des says. Get it to your local vet. Jack Russell Terrier, if he's scooting on the ground with his bum, even though he's been wormed, he's an anal gland problem. Get it sorted now, ASAP. Well done on that. Generally, you know, we're coming into that type of... What type of tips would you be giving to people now? We're coming into the walking season, and it's beginning to spring into summer and all that. It's nearly spring. It's the first time now I've heard you mention the word spring. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's mad, isn't it great? Yeah, I'd say 11th of March. Here we are. Yeah. So once Paddy's Day is over, we can start thinking about spring. So think about the flea treatments and the dewormers. Yes. From about now, and make sure the vaccinations are in order, because you're going to be out and about with your dog more.
Right.
One would hope.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, keep coming. Okay, 0833 97 97 97 for general stuff across the board. We'll be putting up this on our podcast service a little bit later on this afternoon. Des, thanks for coming in and saying
great,
hi.
John.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Have a good one. A good day at the office with our slot, and we're back again next Tuesday with more of the same.
It's a pet's life with Gym Dog, Ireland's first pet resort by Des the Vet. Managed by vets, loved by pets. Daycare, vet care, premium pet food and grooming. Visit a petslife.ie.